Welcome to the acclaimed podcast, The Deep Dive, featuring your esteemed hosts, Andy Monitor and Drew Dinzik, powered by BetSperts.
Welcome to The Deep Dive. Seahawks Day, Andy, your reigning champions of the National Football League. Your reigning champions of the National Football League. The Seattle Seahawks are up on deck for us. Third team we're previewing here in the NFC West, which means they're the second choice, despite the success being the one seed, dominating on their road to a title. They sit behind the Rams right now on the odds board, and they sit behind the Rams, I think, in most power ratings. That said, I think we're going to be pretty positive Seahawks on this podcast. My number two team. I think a lot of what they succeeded last year was, I would qualify as ahead of schedule. I think the defense came together more quickly and more positively than really could have been expected with how quickly they turned over that defensive roster. The major question for me as we go into 2026 is, if you're Sam Darnold and you're a Super Bowl winner now, like, is there a pressure off of your shoulders where your performance continues to just go in one direction? Like, is there a world where he's even better this year? And he is literally just playing without the pressure of accomplishment. He is like just lighting it up. Is that crazy? You're not ready to say it. Andy's signal got nuked right when we started. Sorry, guys. He will be back.
I didn't hear you.
Rock and roll.
No, there we go. I don't usually use these headphones, and I had a little trouble with the audio. But no, I hear what you're saying. That's a weird way to phrase a Sam Darnold question.
Well,
right?
I mean, like nobody is buying Sam Darnold stock right now.
No,
why not? He just won a Super Bowl.
I know it, but it's a weird one. It's not like some quarterback who is, came in, was good. Like this is year 10 of Dan Marino, and like the pressure's on to win the Super Bowl. It's like this guy's never been anybody. We had one season of Minnesota, and I think a lot of people threw that the fuck away when he absolutely, dicked around in those last two games, the final game of the season and the playoff game where he really was the problem. And then it's like, all right, Kevin O'Connell, he can only be the puppeteer, pull the marionette strings so far. This is who he is. And then he goes there. He has another good offensive coordinator. It looked pretty good. He's still very, I think he's still very good. I am knocking this team a little because, they lost their offensive coordinator. I think that's probably my biggest knock on this team right now. There were some departures. There's some injuries. You're shuffling around. You're going to start a rookie part of the time here in your running back room, and I think they obviously have high hopes for him. But there's some reasons to be pessimistic for a team to be able to repeat. And I think the biggest one was they weren't even the best team in their division last year. Still, like, I don't think either of us, I liked them based on price, but neither of us, going into the playoffs had them power rated ahead of the Rams, I don't think. And it was, but as far as win probability of the NFC, the Super Bowl, the bye helped. And, that was factored into our numbers, but it's still a tough road to hoe, and to do it again with the third straight year of new offensive coordinator for a young coach.
Yeah, Seahawks were 2.5-point favorites at home in that NFC Championship game. And yeah, we don't need to. I don't think we need to qualify I would say many championships depend on a little bit of luck. And the Seahawks got theirs in the form of a 2-point recovery, which swung the home field advantage
so much
and got them on a path where, they were fresher and less travel weary and kind of primed to take advantage of the mistakes the Rams made in that NFC Championship game, and then the rest is history. They were, it's a repeatable, successful recipe what they're doing defensively, which is scheme based, kind of defensive manipulation of space, defensive manipulation of, kind of quarterback judgment. It's especially effective against, kind of younger, untested quarterbacks. It's especially effective against the Niners, just because you're kind of specifically getting into their space. But there's no real reason to think that the defense is going to take any meaningful step back this year, even with the turnover of personnel. And I feel like the ceiling of this team, if they were to win another Super Bowl, it's going to be fueled by Sam Darnold in a new system, just kind of having more answers. And the longer he plays and the more his development arc continues to go up and to the right, like if he's just like a high floor quarterback all of a sudden this year, like the Seahawks are very, very live to win this again.
Yeah. And some of it does stem from it feels like he's been around forever, but you talk about his development arc. He's not that old.
He's 29.
Yeah. He just turned 29. I think he feels older because he's been on like 6 teams. I mean, Niners, Panthers, Jets, Vikings, Seahawks. It just, when you bounce around like that, it feels like, oh man, this guy's been around forever, and he's not that old. So I'm with you there. I'm approaching with a little more caution because of another offensive coordinator, turnover we had here, and the fact that I really did like Kubiak. I think a lot of what he did was, more of the reasons for success. At the same time, Darnold has to go out there and execute, and he certainly did. He was great. He was great in the playoffs. He mattered a ton, and it was another stop here, same as Minnesota. We had some nice weapons. He took advantage of it, and it's funny because the Jets, that makes it funny when a Jets quarterback doesn't succeed and then goes somewhere else and wins. So we kind of, before we get into some of the offseason stuff, I don't know what else there is to say about.
Also, by the way, first quarterback of the 2018 class to win a chip.
Which is wild. 2018 doesn't sound that long ago either, but again, it's 8 years. So yeah, it was we talked about the Niners game in the last podcast. They earned the bye. They absolutely dump trucked the Niners, and then we had a really fun NFC Championship game, and we were banging the drums for this number is a little light in the Super Bowl. We both went to war with Seattle. It felt nice. Nothing better than going out of the season with a win, so that felt good. Couple years in a row now, we've had decent conviction on the Super Bowl, which is always like I hate doing it sometimes when I don't feel it, because we're in the content space and it feels like we have to take a stand on the Super Bowl. So those years where it's like, I don't know, the number's right. Like, what do you want me to say? For 2 weeks, I can't do that. I have to pick something. But the last couple of years, it's been, hey, this is definitely a side I like. So that felt nice. They won by 15, 16 points.
Was it that much?
Rams are still
closed. Gap closed.
Still
right?
hires. What was the final score? Should we look her up?
It was 29-13. Yeah, you're right. 16 points.
16 points. Nice win by them. Kenneth Walker, Super Bowl MVP, no longer on the team. JSN was your OPOI. And basically bringing back most of the same team. And yet here we are. And I'm not like arguing that they should be behind the Rams. They should absolutely still be behind the Rams, because not only were the Rams rated higher, but I think the Rams offseason is a little rosier. Not that I'm saying Seattle had a bad offseason. It's tough when you're in the spot and you have one of the best teams. It's not always you got to grade on a curve. With these teams with a lot of cap space and a lot of missing pieces, like, oh, they had a great offseason.
Well, they got sold too, which I think handicapped them from spending.
That was weird too, with the sale of the team, which is funny today mentioning that after seeing how much the Lakers are going to go for. Jesus Christ. Didn't they just sell like last year?
How the fuck is that a correct price? Like if the Rams are worth like a little more than that, but they have SoFi, which is like an all-time. I'm assuming maybe that's not part of the calculus, but yeah, that was
the correct price is what someone's willing to pay.
Yeah, that's true. Guess. Yeah, that's true. That's a great point.
I just want the Lakers. Yeah, I really don't want to delve too deep into 2025. I guess I don't have a lot left to say about them. We were cautiously optimistic because of Darnold's Minnesota season. Once it started to look good, I was willing to
I got a couple things,
team, and we're happy. Go ahead. I don't have
much. I thought the defense, kind of met a baseline level of excellent pretty much throughout the season, and got better even as we got into the games that mattered the most. When they were up against a quarterback that was a little bit out of his depth, they were just such a fun defense to watch, just making quarterbacks OCs miserable. The offense was kind of the more interesting part of the story for me. Clint Kubiak got a lot of credit because he came in and immediately kind of improved what Ryan Grubb was doing with this offense. But I think maybe he's getting a little too much of the credit. I think JSN got a little too little of the credit. Obviously, he was the offensive player of the year, so he got some credit. Don't get me wrong. I just think that, his specific ability to, consistently win against didn't matter what level of coverage he was up against. He was consistently winning, and I really think that was a huge part of their offensive success. Obviously, in the Super Bowl, Ken Walker was, the story, and presumably will be missed. But I didn't think he had an especially, huge role in their success last year, despite the decent numbers he put up. I kind of want to talk about Darnold a little more. His story goes back to when he was the backup for San Francisco. I feel like he kind of put the pieces in place of how to play quarterback from just being in that room and kind of gaining, a different perspective on how to think about offensive football from, being the backup under Shanahan. And I think that combined with a great situation in Minnesota kind of was, this is why this guy was the third overall pick in 2018, ahead of Josh Allen, ahead of Lamar Jackson, right? Like it was like, he has the skill set. Now he's like caught up mentally. The end of the Vikings experience, I thought, was largely fueled by he was in a very high pressure situation of you must win these games. And he was under significant duress because of weak interior offensive line performance for the Vikings. And actually, they had lost Darisaw too. So it was just the offensive line was just a mash unit by the time we got to the end of the year. And that really kind of had him turn into a pumpkin when like the lights were the brightest. And I think coming out of that experience, my, kind of box you put him in is, well, he could be a great regular season quarterback, but boy, oh boy, when the lights were bright, like boy, did he turtle, right? And that was maybe the limitation that I think kept a lot of people from joining you and just firing into great numbers for Seattle last year. Because I think and this is what I want to ask you, even betting Seattle and getting a great number, were you thinking I'm riding to the death with Sam Darnold on this bet, or were you just like, hey, we're going to capture some serious equity and we'll figure out what we do with it later?
It was always we'll figure it out later until they got the 1 seed. It's like, all right, now we're gonna ride this. And there was some thoughts about how tough that NFC championship game was going to be, but again, it was at home. It's like, you know what, we'll ride this till the wheels fall off. And then obviously liked him in the Super Bowl, so at that point went with it. And I think you raised an interesting point, and that was my only other real Darnold point I wanted to harp on, was he spent a season maybe not playing, but getting to sit into offensive meetings with Kyle Shanahan. And then he got to spend a season with Kevin O'Connell, who comes from recently from the McVay tree. Whereas the seasons before that were, this is a fun trivia. Can you name any of Sam Darnold's offensive coordinators from the Jets. He was with the Jets from 2018 to 2020. There were, you know what? There was only 2.
So pre Mike LaFleur.
LaFleur took over after he was gone.
So pre Mike LaFleur, huh? Oh man.
Post Chan Gailey, though.
Oh Jesus!
I mean, they ran through some names. I mean, Schottenheimer, Brian Sperano, Morningweg, Gainey. Right. Anyway, so it was Jeremy Bates during the 2018 season. 1 year wonder. And then Dowell Logans. I don't want to say this guy. I don't remember Dowell Logans. And then he
didn't leave an impression on the league, I don't think.
And then he went to Carolina, where he got the tail end, the
Frank Reich. Was it the Frank Reich year?
No, it was I'm talking coordinator, so it might have been Frank Reich, but he got like the tail end of Joseph Brady when he was kind of in the falling out, and then his last year in Carolina was a fellow with some slicked back hair, looking pretty cool. Used to be a Giant.
Oh man, Bob McAdoo. Ben McAdoo. Ben McAdoo
was his. So he went from McAdoo to Shanahan as he switched from Carolina to San Francisco. Quite the stark transition. Yeah, I think a lot of that played into his, hey, I finally have some people I can, learn from that have been successful in this league. And hopefully that translates, because he is going in with, and let's just go right into this guy. What do you know about Brian Fleury?
I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic for some reason. I can't tell you why. He
comes in with a good cupboard of.
He was a quarterback back in the day, right?
Sure.
I think he played in college, and then he was big time Niners guy for a long time. So it's like, I think it's a guy he probably has a relationship when he was the backup in San Fran. Don't you think?
I think so. He was actually a defensive quality control coach when he started coaching in San Francisco. Ended up moving to tight ends and run game coordinator. He started his coaching career as a defensive coach in college and early NFL stops. So it's funny, but you would expect, Shanahan type schemes, thought processes. I don't,
He's been since he made the move to the NFL. He's been involved in some interesting programs and had a lot of different roles. He spent 3 years in the operations department for the Dolphins, football research analyst, and then director of football research. That's kind of intriguing to me. Like and then going from there to being on the coaching staff at San Francisco is fun. Like I just kind of look at his path and I'm kind of like, man, what if he does have some wrinkles and some stuff that's new and interesting that it's people are not prepared for, that could take the league by surprise.
Yeah, and interesting. I mean, everybody, the camp quotes that I tried to dig up some info on him, and the camp quotes are obviously, "Oh, we love this guy. It's been a seamless transition from Clint Tim. Like, this has been great." Nobody's going to come out and be like, "Meetings haven't been good." Like, you go say that to you're like,
"Oh, we're missing Kubiak."
Yeah, you're the backup tight end. You go say that to the press. See what happens to your job. But something that did stick out is he really, really does want to get the running backs more involved in the passing game than what they were doing previously. So it's interesting with the youngster on the roster and what they do with him. But I think the biggest takeaways for me are 6 years with Shanahan. And one of the worst things I think you can come into for a situation as being a new offensive coordinator is having a shitty offensive line. Not that there aren't some question marks here or there, but the cohesion is there. It's for the most part, we're just kind of running it back with a lot of this offense. So being able to see how they operated last year and not having to make too many decisions on who am I plugging in here, I think I think it's a nice, easy landing spot for him. So we'll see. It still is a big job putting a game plan together not by yourself. You have a team, but being where the buck stops for putting a game plan together, doing the play calling. So it'll be very interesting to see. I think that's for me, that's the biggest offseason question mark. Where they still did lose players, they added players, but I think this is more important than anything else outside of maybe the rookie running back. That'll be interesting to see how they incorporate him, because it's instantly there's a hole to fill there.
Yeah, I guess like, to me, it's entirely just a question of how do QBOC. QBOC is the dial that either takes this team back to kind of middle of the pack contender, or like we are not that far from the Rams. And so that's kind of the one that you got to focus on most. I thought that their move, if we want to talk a little off season, I thought that they basically made a choice between Rashid Shaheed and Kenneth Walker. And I thought it was fascinating that they went in the direction of Shaheed, who they had for a lot less time than Ken Walker. And I mean, it's a smart front office, obviously. Like, they're telling that's signal to me. So,
but I think he's worth a few yards of of field position too, compared to it's nice to have a solid returner in the building as well. So yeah. Let's pivot to off season, because you mentioned Kenneth Walker gone. He got paid and $28 million in Kansas City guaranteed. Good for him. Kobe Bryant, the safety, which is a funny one to bring up with the timing today, because he is out for a long time for the Bears.
Yeah, probably a regular season.
Surgery. Yeah, the whole regular season, which is neither here nor there. They did lose him to the Bears. The safety, Reek Woolen, is in Philadelphia. We talked about him when we talked about the Eagles. He played 900 some snaps last year. He was a big part of this. Boye Mafe is a Bengal. He essentially is replaced by Mr. Dante Fowler, who they brought in from Dallas. So kind of a swap there, which truthfully possibly even an upgrade if Fowler plays well on the other side of that line. And then some churn down below: Quandre Diggs, Shaq Griffin, Derek Young, Cam Akers off the roster. Like I mentioned, we added Dante Fowler, the edge piece from Dallas. And then you brought in some other corners and safeties because you need to backfill a little. Rodney Thomas from Indy, he was a decent coverage safety for the Colts. He'll be kind of backing up. He's your third safety in the room, but it's nice to have a third safety nowadays when teams do a lot of playing three safeties. And you also brought in Anthony Bell, another safety from Carolina. Noah, God, I'm bad at this guy's name. Igbenogbe, cornerback from Washington. Hopefully depth, because he doesn't grade out as well as some of the other guys. He's going to be depth on the outside, possibly nickel. You brought in Bobby Hart from the Chargers, an offensive tackle. Another one where you hope he doesn't have to play, because he's a big step down from your guys on the ends of the line right now. He is a swing tackle insurance piece. Kind of the same thing with Harrison Bryant, tight end. That's a blocking tight end, depth. Manuel Wilson, running back, which maybe isn't super depth at this point based on the injuries and the departures from the running back room. And then Irvin Charles, who is I think he missed all of last year. He's a wide receiver for the Jets, probably a special teams guy, but I don't have a lot of grades on him because he tore his ACL and didn't play last year. And then, like you said, we re-signed Shaheed. JSN got his contract. You're able to keep Derek Hall in the building. Josh Jobe, Ernest Jones is back.
Extension for Witherspoon inked.
Yeah, the Witherspoon. And then the draft. Jadarian Price. We'll talk deeper on him. I wanted your opinion. But then real quick, second round, Bud Clark, TCU safety. He might push for the free safety job with Okada in front of him. Julian Neal from Arkansas, cornerback. More depth pieces and pieces you can plug in, hopefully, at some point in the secondary. They lost, like we mentioned, you lost Woolen, Bryant, Diggs, Griffin. You needed some extra pieces here in the draft. They drafted a guard from Iowa in the 5th round. Again, another guy that's probably not starting, but Anthony Bradford is your weak spot on that line, and you drafted somebody who's probably backing him up. Wide receiver from Kansas, another depth piece. I don't know that this guy makes the team because you have not just Shaheed, JSN, and Cup, but you got Jake Bobo, Torrey Horton. It's gonna be tough for a young receiver to make the room. Better get good at special teams, guys. And then a few other defensive pieces. 2 more corners, though. Interestingly enough, late in the draft, as well as nose tackle from Minnesota, who is, I think, just come off the pup a week or so ago. Some of these guys were, Eastern was injured, but he's off the pup now. So tough offseason to grade, because when you are the man that beats the man, you're going to lose some pieces. And I often wonder about that with free agency decisions. I know there are some guys who nothing matters more than a title. And if they get that title, nothing matters more than the next title. And there's nothing they want to do more than win the Super Bowl every year. And I get it. But I think in my mind, if I had that monkey off my back, like, hey, I have a Super Bowl ring. They can never take this away from me. And there was money on the table somewhere else, it makes it a little easier to be like, all right, I'll take the money. I'm willing to play for a shittier team, or maybe a worse situation for like $10 extra million, or a better guaranteed money or something like that. So with these teams that win these Super Bowls, I often wonder about that as you see the free agency kind of go against them a little.
I feel like this year's Seattle experience was like exactly the way it should go. If you're a tier 1 player on that championship team, you get compensated to stay in-house and they build around you. If you're a tier 2 player on that championship team, your role is not going to get expanded. You're not going to get the, as big a payday. You seek greener pastures elsewhere, because that is your buy. That is your sell, as you are selling high on yourself. And I feel like that's exactly what happened in all of these examples. The Kenneth Walker one may be the best, because like a good GM, like in the same division as we were, what the fuck are you doing, Monty Austin, for wasting the 3rd pick on a running back? This was a classic John Schneider gets it. You let the running back walk. You're going to get draft compensation for that.
Yeah.
And then using a 1st round pick on an elite running back, presumably, is where it would be a luxury for, it's a luxury for you compared to your divisional opponent who has holes everywhere and is going to ruin that guy's prime. So now you're going to get take a guy out of college, have him in his prime through his rookie contract. You may get better production out of Price in his rookie contract than ultimately year 3, 4, 5 of wherever Walker plays next. And it's just sound decision making that I think should be applauded. Whether it works out or not, I don't have a strong opinion, but I definitely feel like the process is excellent compared to what we see elsewhere in the NFL. I think Price is probably the only guy of any of the guys you mentioned that sees the field for a meaningful amount of snaps without there being an injury this year.
Yeah, that would be the hope, as I mentioned. Like, you don't want to start this backup guard unless Bradford's just that bad.
Kobe Bryant is maybe the one guy of all the guys you mentioned who I was kind of like, that could hurt him. That might sting. Because who's his backfill? Ty Okada.
Yeah. Then that's why I mentioned, like, Ty Okada might be, depending on this Bud Clark looks in camp, and I don't have a lot of info on him yet, it might push him a little.
Bud Clark, great name.
Bud Clark, TCU safety.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it felt like Boye Mafe walking out the door. Your backfill there is strong. no skin.
That's what I said. It might even be an upgrade. Dante Fowler.
Who's the corner that went to Philly that you mentioned?
Reek Woolen.
Reek Woolen, backfill there, strong. No step back in your secondary. And yeah, I mean, Kenneth Walker could presumably he's going to get the type of expanded role in Kansas City that's going to make him live for Offensive Player of the Year. And I'm glad he got paid. But I don't think that meaningfully changes my. I'm not turning down my knob on the Seattle offense because of that loss and Jadarian Price stepping in. Sorry. That's just the way that running back value works, as far as I can tell you. Off-season grade, they get an A for me for process. I think John Schneider is proving to be one of the sharper men in football with the way he has handled the transition from a very stale Pete Carroll regime to what they have going on in Seattle now, which I think is perennial title pursuit. I mentioned off the very top, I thought that Seattle got the Super Bowl a little ahead of schedule with this defensive nucleus of talented players and what Mike Macdonald is doing scheme-wise, which to me looks very, very challenging to solve. I think there's a world where, Seattle is, I think they score more than one Lombardi out of this mini chapter in their franchise. So it's an A for me.
They did same defensive coordinator. I guess we didn't mention that there wasn't turnover there, but it is McDonald who does call the defense anyway. So it's not a guy that gets a lot of love. And Aiden Dirty. Dirty. Jay
Harbaugh,
British.
special teams coach. That's John or Jim's kid.
It's the right name.
John or Jim's kid.
I do not know.
Okay.
I sometimes can't.
I think it's Jim's. I think it's Jim's kid. Could be wrong. John Harbaugh.
It's one of their. It's one of their nephews.
Oh, it is.
Well, if it's one of their kids, it's one of their nephews.
Oh yeah, that's a fair point.
He is Jim's son, grandson of Jack Harbaugh, and nephew of John Harbaugh, also related to Mike Green.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to ratings. But before we do, thank you to Circa, who sponsored this podcast. Sign up for the Super Contest. Sign up for Millions. Sign up for the Pro Football Contests at Circa. The expectation right now is that Survivor will crest 20 million this year. There are very few opportunities.
The European model is looking at 25 million. It's like a weather report joke, but I mean, there's some people that they're saying 25 million.
Yeah, that would even over 20 million in a contest that's as well run and as I don't really want to poke their competition, but like there's some shady business with the other opportunities around, in my opinion. The way that the contests get filled, the way that they take a rake. Yeah, there are some eyebrow raising aspects to the other contests in sports. There is nothing eyebrow raising about the way Circa runs their pro football contests. So get involved. Millions, Survivor, split up your lotto tickets however you see fit, and go win $1 million. Ratings, we got to focus on quarterback OC. As I mentioned, this is going to drive your rating between, I think, +2.5 and +6, somewhere in there. You're going to fall depending on what you decide to do with your quarterback number. As you look at the efficiency stats from Sam Darnold last year, he was good, not great. And most of the kind of things keeping him from the rare air performance-wise were the turnovers. If you remove turnovers, he was your third best quarterback in the NFL by EPA per play, and any type of composite rating you want to do. When you include turnovers in your evaluation, he was more like 9 or 10. That's 9 or 10's fine if you have a defense that's 1 or 2. And I think it's kind of noteworthy that a lot of what he did, and when he made mistakes, I didn't feel like it affected his confidence or his kind of next drive out there. It was a short memory for him, which was again part of like the growth of playing quarterback, I think. And honestly, like a lot of the mistakes he made were not like the absurdly dumb, this guy doesn't get it type of mistakes. In my opinion, they were just, he was being aggressive at times, pushing the ball, and found a safety or a D back. So those things happen. Matthew Stafford used to be that way, and he had a season last year where he threw for 5-6 interceptions, and that was all of a sudden he's now God and MVP, and we ended up with 8 interceptions. But yeah, I mean, if you're just getting interception luck one year as opposed to just kind of specifically turnover worthy plays, a good turnover worthy luck season for Sam Darnold with JSN in that wide receiver room. People are not talking about him as potential MVP, and it's probably wrong.
Yeah, there has to be so much context, not just with quarterbacks, but quarterbacks and receivers, and then also on the flip side with the defenses. When we're starting to look at these, these turnovers. It's almost like, remember in Madden when it would say user pick, because it was like you actually took the defensive player and like made the interception, because it would just throw in interception sometimes if the other team made a bad throw. Once in a while, it would be an interception. Nothing you did would change that. But it was like user pick, because, like you mentioned, there are different levels of interception where it's like, hey, the receiver ran the wrong route on a timing route down the field, and it was basically catching a punt. And I don't think that was like a bad decision on the quarterback's part. Whereas like, hey, this quarterback just didn't see a linebacker, and he's bad at his job. And it's crazy how you mentioned that, because I was thinking a little bit about that with Darnold, trying to grade out some of his stuff, and with Stafford, where it's like, what was there to grade? The guy just didn't throw picks. If you throw in his playoff games, it was like 55 touchdowns, 10 picks or something, just obscene kind of numbers. For
both guys were consistently ahead of schedule and didn't face a lot of pressure either, which helped.
Yeah, good to great offensive lines definitely help with the quarterback. Where is your quarterback OC number to start the season?
Okay. Obviously some question about the OC, but again, cautious optimism here. Seattle and Darnold are going to come in ranked number 13 for me, with a 7.2. So expecting good things, expecting him to land kind of right around that top 10 again.
When I did all my OC numbers, I kind of set the standard on where I'm doing it, so I had to keep it a little steady, and I put Fleury up ahead of like David Blau, but not by much, and he did drag it down a little, so I'm at a 6.5. That said, I think that's a number that I'm going to have my finger on a little bit with the preseason, and see how some of the stuff looks coming out of camp.
I like it. Skill position group led by JSN is going to be great. I love Rashid Shaheed as a player. Cooper Kupp is probably the weak link among the guys who are expected to start. I would expect that.
Bad grade on him. I feel bad.
I did too. I don't think he ultimately has a ton to say about the success or failure of the Seattle offense this year. I think there's some interesting younger guys who will get some run. I would love to see a healthy Zach Charbonnet to go along with a Jadarian Price, so you have a little bit of multiple looks there. I would love to see AJ Barner be a more impactful player for you. I think tight ends clearly becoming a very important part of the best, most successful offenses in football. And this guy's coming from San Francisco, where Kittle, was running some of the best routes among all tight ends last year. So I think expectations are going to be high for the tight end room to take a step forward. But again, as long as you get 10 targets to JSN every game, this has to start with a 6. And for me, with the cautious optimism of the running back you drafted, I'm at a 6.8.
Boy, my number is going to come in lower than you. I did start a little lower here as well, just because of everything we said. I'm at a 5.8, but I don't think that's the number I go into the season with. Mine is assuming no Charbonnet, assuming a rookie really trying to figure it out to start the season. I have a pretty dusty number on Cup. Like, basically, this is we made this joke with another team, but it was like, if it was only JSN out there by himself and everyone knew he was getting the ball, I'd still give this skill position group like a 5.5 because he's such a big part of it. I did look into that a little too, as far as guys who had such a big target share that can be a problem year after year, because defenses can start to just scheme that out, especially if you don't have a good wide receiver too. I'm looking for some of the other guys to step up, as we mentioned, the receiver depth. I think the receiver depth is decent with Bobo and Horton. Some of those guys being a little more involved and maybe less Cup is important. I don't love the tight end room, but I think it's because of how they used it. Like you said, it'll be interesting. It's not bad. I'm just saying I'm not giving them a high grade on the tight end room. So I'm a little lower to start, just based on what they're going to go into the season with. Basically, hey, your RB1 is the guy who's never played a snap.
JSN is wide receiver 2, I think, for me. Let me see.
He is. He's so much of this grade. And I didn't knock him too hard for this, but he was a part of the offense. Your fullback, Robbie Oots, on the IR, hurt, injured.
Neck,
time,
right?
So, yeah, I think it's a decent injury.
Yeah. All right. Well, offensive line for me is a little bit below average, and it's mostly because I don't grade who's hurting them. Sorry, I didn't bring up my full offensive line worksheet to see who's dragging Bradford down. Is that who's dragging this down? I actually don't really love Sundell either.
No, but the entire interior.
Sundell's a little worse than your average center. Bradford's a minus.
Big minus.
Zabel, Lucas, all
second year.
players.
Let's give him a little grace because it was his first year and he didn't grade poorly. But like Cross and Lucas, great, very weak interior, especially on the right side.
I had a pretty good number for Zabel.
For a rookie, I have him above average.
For a rookie, I had him very good. He's no Quentin Nelson or Tyler Smith, but he's very good. No Joe Thuney, but he's in like the upper middle class.
Based on his draft positioning and how he played last year, I gave him a little bit of I expect him to get a little bit better, where he's not an elite right guard, but he's definitely going to be above average, left guard. The right side and the center are weak. The tackles are good. I'm at 4.4.
I was disappointed in Zabel's run blocking. I was really impressed. I'm sorry, disappointed in his pass blocking. I was really, really impressed with his run blocking. Okay. All right. I'm at it. What did I say what my number was? I'm at a 4.7.
Yeah, we're pretty close here.
I'm at a 4.7. That makes Seattle the 10th.
A lot of people are mentioning Hard Knocks. I don't remember the last time I watched Hard Knocks. It's not even because it's not good. I just don't have the time to watch a TV show that long about one team.
I need to check it out. It's rare that you get the defending Super Bowl champion and that kind of a spotlight. All right, my Seattle offense is 10th in the NFL, 65th percentile. And that's actually not that different than they finished last year, if I remember correctly. Let me take a look. Yeah, at the end of last year, I had Seattle as my 9th best offense. Now they're 10th. So unless the wheels fall off of Darnold or if your new offensive coordinator, Brian Fleury, poops the bed, I think that this is going to be an offense that scores against the bad defenses.
Yes.
Defense. How high do you go with some of these is kind of the key question, right?
I was surprised.
What's your lowest number of these three?
My lowest number of these three is going to be pass rush.
Really?
Yeah, and it's still above average. It's a good, and it's because I have such a sick run stop number, and I'm still high enough on coverage because some of the guys they left graded out worse than the guys that stayed in the secondary, and I'm fine with some of it. So I'm about neutral on coverage from last year to this. I'm same thing with run stop. It was an amazing run stop, and then pass rush is just we have to see it happen. I like as I mentioned the backfill, but it's got to happen first.
Yeah, linebackers for me graded a little weak in the run game. Not Dexter Lawrence. Demarcus Lawrence was a surprise. He was a very high number for me with his both of his contributions. But his run defense rating for an edge, I think, is close to as high as any edge. Leonard Williams is a monster, obviously. Byron Murphy is very good and young and improving.
Reed was the weak spot.
He's the weak link, but not really on run. It's mostly on pass rush.
I mean, he's like the weakest link in the run stop, but it's still like a good grade. You know, it's like you're just not as good as all these elite players, and then you start throwing in some of the secondary pieces who, Witherspoon playing up in the box. That has to be a small part of it. And, some of the other players that come up, because it's not just front seven. Yeah, my run stop's 8.2. I think it's the best.
Okay. I had I had questionable numbers on Ernest Jones and Nwosu. Drake Thomas is your best run stopping linebacker, and he's not great among. But it may not matter because you're never going to get to the second level. All right, I'm at. You're at 8.2.
8.2. Yeah,
I'm only at 5.8. So if it's all the same guys, why weren't they better against the run last year? Oh, they were the best in the NFL.
They were the best team against the run last year. So, and here's the thing, Drew. I ran into a weird part because when I start doling up my numbers, I have to look at who was responsible for run stop last year, who made the tackles, who was responsible. And when you start to see something where it's like, man, a lot of secondary tackles, like that's not good, right? But when you start to see a team where the secondary makes a lot of run stopping tackles, but the run success rate is still incredibly low, it's because they're making the tackles up in the box and because they're moving up fast or they were already there. So that was something I had to kind of square away with how I was weighting it, because there's a few teams where it's like, man, your free safety made a lot of tackles in the run game. That's not great. But if you have a low success rate against, which they did, it means they weren't getting to the marker. They weren't getting to the spot on first down to make it a successful run. So overall, it's just a super high number for me.
I'm at 5.8 and I'm apparently low. I don't have very glorious run stop numbers across the NFL, so 8.2 to me sounds high just from what I would even consider going. Like, how high do you go, right? How good is the best? But yeah, I'm probably low here. I gotta figure out if I made a bust on in my composite somehow to get 5.8.
I wonder, because it feels a little lower, closer on everything else.
I mean, their numbers from last year were flipping ridiculous. I'm wondering if I took a 2-year stint. I tried to weight this over 2 years instead of one, just because I was a little bit.
I do that, but
a little bit concerned at games. Like I don't have them all that different from Texans and Broncos. But anyway, pass rush for me is good. I do like this pass rush. I have them at a 6.6. That is on the higher end for me for where I'm going. And it's kind of trying to marry talent and scheme.
Yeah.
Your best pass rushing, comes largely from Leonard Williams, Derek Hall, DeMarcus Lawrence. These guys are all well above average. Byron Murphy, well above average. The depth is maybe the only problem. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I knocked him for depth a little. Boye Mafe was like 10% of the pass rush snaps. in a hole out of all of them last year. So you do have to assume that Fowler will be
Derek
fine.
Hall is depth.
Yeah, I know it's good. I'm a little lower. I'm at a 5.8. I did ding him a little for age. Lawrence and Fowler aren't.
I thought Boye-Mafe was clearly their fourth best edge.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's the guy you let walk out the door, obviously.
Yeah, it is.
6.6 for me is pretty rare air. 7.4 for me for coverage. This is really where the Seahawks, in my opinion, shine. Witherspoon, Emanuwari, Job. These guys were elite coverage pieces, and you add that to the scheme that McDonald brings, where he is utilizing space and simulating pressures and confusing quarterbacks so that they can't make up their mind about what they want to do before they snap the ball is good. And I don't know how anyone solves that. Really, the only solution to what the Seahawks are doing, I think, is what the Rams are doing offensively, where their running attack is so flipping effective against the Seattle's run defense. But yeah, coverage for me is very high number, 7.4. What about you?
6.8, just because of the turnover. And this is another one where it
Week
probably
one
doesn't
matter.
It's one thing if you lose one guy who was like a meaningful player that played in this defense. But there's a bunch of turnover, and granted, none of it was Witherspoon, which matters. Also, a little ding because Emanuwari's not 100% healthy. If he looks good and he's fine, it looks like he's going into week one 100%. We'll bump it up a little bit again. So I'll come closer up to your number.
What's your current split on he'll play week one? Because I was like 2080 he'll play.
So he's off the pup now, right? He's available. He came off yesterday. So that once you come off, you can start to do some, work on the side and then get yourself acclimated. I'm like 50-50. We'll know a lot more in the next week. Like that number could go to 0 or 100 in about a week once we get a little bit of a feel for amount of worries. Availability, I like Love. Okada's, Job is good, but not Witherspoon. So it's a good secondary that can get better if it's 100% healthy.
Well, going into the season, they'll be rated my third best defense with a 66th percentile. For me, intangibles 5.3. Some of that is dragged down because I need to see what the offensive adjustments look like under Fleury. Special teams for me is 6.5. What about you?
Yeah, 7 on special teams. Intangibles, I'm right there with you at a 4.5. I do a little bit more of a 2-year sample when I'm looking at intangible stuff if the coach has been there that long.
Mm-hmm.
They cleaned it up last year. McDonald's first year, they were pretty penalty prone. Yeah. They did a better job of that last year. It's easier when you're in a winning position in the game as well, though. So I'm not too far behind you here. I'm a little lower, and as I mentioned, I have like 6 numbers that I'm probably moving the levers up on over the next month before we get to week one.
Okay.
So I'll be closer to that. You're in a 64th percentile team. I'm at 60. I'll probably be at 62, 63. And
Andy's a plus 3. I'm a plus 4.2. The market, Andy. 4.46. So hot off the presses. Andy is fading the Seahawks. Seahawks.
It's
Andy
crazy.
Hates the Seahawks.
He
timed the buy at the bottom, and he's calling the top.
They won the Super Bowl. They can't have the hangover. The hangover comes from the loser.
Well, there's one other thing that's going to prevent a hangover, Andy. That is a liquid IV. That is the softest first 10 weeks that they've ever given a champion. What the hell is this?
Yeah, there's a lot of winnable games there, isn't there? Especially with the matchups this team is going to have. Like we said, you got tackles that can neutralize some good pass rushing edges. You have JSN who's going to just, hey, guess what? You're going to get 15 targets today, buddy. Such is life. And you're going to you're going to eat Arizona alive. You're going to eat like some of these secondaries that they have to face. Granted, Denver is amazing, and there are some good defenses you're going to have to face here, but
there's a lot of bad ones.
There's a lot of secondaries, like Chicago, who just had a player get hurt, and Arizona twice, Vegas, Washington. Like, oh, man, Kansas City's is kind of rebuilt at this point. It depends how you feel about the Chargers. We'll get to them, huh? But there's some spots where it's like, hey, Darnold's gonna have a big day because guess who's gonna be open. And if you get anything out of this running back room, 31 points, guys. And maybe, and the only reason they don't score 31 is because their defense held the other team down enough where
they ran out the ball.
Yeah, they aren't going with any sort of tempo or urgency in the second half at all.
Yeah, you're home for 6 of the first 9 weeks of the season. Your only real serious trip in the first half of the season is going to the Washington Commanders, week 3. You are favored a lot until coming off your bye, where you will be at San Francisco. Really no world where I would say with high confidence you're going to be dogs in that game. That is very much, that could be a part of the schedule where San Francisco has been downgraded, you've been upgraded, and you're a small favorite. Philly, and then Dallas is actually Dallas is a fun matchup for you because they actually do have the kind of weapons and the kind of running balance that could make things really tough for your defense, I think. So that Monday Night Football game, 12-7. If we're talking about, and we are about to, you kind of have to buy Seattle today.
Now,
right now.
You
want a giant price? You want as good a price as you're going to get on these guys? I think you kind of have to take it now. And the sell point, if you're just going to try to accumulate some equity on that or just partial equity, I think is probably that Monday Night Football game against Dallas. That one's going to be good. The Philly game is going to be fun. That looks like a defensive square off. Who knows who wins? But the important part of the schedule, Andy, is that your 2 most important games come week 16 and week 18 when you play the Rams and then you play the Rams. So
no Rams till Christmas.
Yeah.
You play Arizona a couple times right off the bat. You get the Niners early and then right kind of in the middle there. But yeah, both Rams games are Christmas and then the 10th of next year, the 10th of January next year at the Rams to close the season, possibly, probably, maybe for the division. So that could be a standalone banger. Oof.
A couple other notes, 3 straight primetime games, week 6, 7, and 8. If you are winning, to me, that puts wind in the sails for who can believe it. Darnold is the MVP favorite. I kind of like him at price, and we'll be selling at some point before we get to the final stages of the season. But that Denver game is going to be very, very, very fun to watch. Did you see they're going to do the throwback uniforms for that?
Yeah, that is. If you haven't seen that yet, there's a tweet or two about it. All-time jersey game. They're going to like the early '90s Seahawks jerseys and the orange, the good orange blue Denver ones. Like jersey game of the century.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this out loud, but Darnold MVP I think is worth putting in your pocket just in case. I don't know that the Seattle Seahawks get the 1 seed. I don't have high confidence in that at all. But I do know that they are going to be shorter to win the Super Bowl and win the West once they get into that home stretch against the Carolina Rams. And so for those reasons, from a strategic betting perspective for the Super Bowl, for the conference, and for the division, I think you got to have Seahawks.
Fine with that.
There's another half to this conversation that we will get to in just a minute, but how about we wrap this up? Final thoughts?
Yeah. Final thoughts. Yeah. If you want to bet the Seahawks, as Drew said a few times, the time is nay. It is now. You got to get after it. So we will talk about the other half.
I guess if you think
that
the Patriots are going to get revenge on them in the opener, then maybe the time is after that game. I don't know. Do you have an opinion on that one yet? Probably going to lean Seahawks.
Yeah, I'd still lean Seahawks there.
We kind of need to know about Emanuel, I guess. All right. Well, let's talk Rams and get to the other half of this conversation of who the best in the West is right now.